What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. We are back for the game of the week for the second week in a row. I've got Alex, I've got Anthony here with me. Guys, last week we chose, what was it, Clemson, Georgia.
Yep.
That game went about the way that we thought it was going to go. But this week we are taking BSU at Oregon. How are we feeling about it?
Well, Oregon played a really weird game yesterday, or last week, excuse me. They gained 487 yards on the ground, or total yards, but they only put up 24 points. So, if you were watching the game, Idaho hung around in the fourth quarter, and the game was tied 14-14, but they were able to secure the victory in the end. But we had Oregon as the top 3 team in the country in our preseason episode, and we had them having one of the best offenses in the country. So, Dakota, what happened? Should we be worried about them?
Honestly, I'm going to say no. We shouldn't be worried about Oregon. I think this was just a team that Oregon overlooked. I saw a couple of tweets coming into today that said the first one was Oregon's offensive line was missing several key players, and they had a walk-on starting at center, which obviously is not ideal for any contender. But you also had the fact that the other tweet said, heading into that game, Oregon's offensive line kind of looked hungover. So they might have been doing a little too much partying heading into that game, which again would show why they looked sluggish, which would show why they didn't have the depth that they normally have. But I mean, you saw what Dylan Gabriel was able to do. You know, he put up nearly 400 passing yards. The run game looked solid, especially late in the game. I think a lot of people don't give Idaho as much credit either.
Yeah, they're a
This
decent FCS team.
They are. They're a really good FCS team, and this was kind of like their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They're going up against an FBS team, one of the best FBS teams in the nation, and their defense was just playing out of its mind.
Mhm.
They were able to get through the offensive line several times, but I don't think that people should be worried about Oregon as much as they are, considering the fact that after the game and even during the game, Dan Lanning was not happy. From what I've heard this week, Oregon is ready to go. Dan Lanning has changed that narrative heading into this week's game, and this team is going to be refreshed, rejuvenated, and it's going to be the Oregon team that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and you mentioned that was Idaho's Super Bowl. This is going to be Boise State's Super Bowl as well.
Hmm.
And this is massive in terms of their playoff chances. There's no other G5 team that would have a better victory than this one, or even a close loss would look incredible for their playoff chances, let's be honest. And last week, Austin Jeanty, I don't know how you say his last name, but he ran for 6 touchdowns and 267 yards. So he's on his way to being the best running back in the nation, maybe making a case for the Heisman. But the silver lining to that was their defense allowed 45 points to Georgia Southern. So they're pretty vulnerable on that side of the ball, and I think if Oregon can clean some things up, they could have a really big day on the offensive side as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of history between these two. I mean, there's not, it's not a lot, as in game-wise, but we're talking 3 games where BSU has won all 3 of those.
Yeah, that's a
So,
crazy stat.
Oregon is looking for their first win against Boise State.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Boise State has looked pretty phenomenal. Jainty is arguably one of the best running backs in the nation right now. there's a chance. I mean, if he plays like he did in week one, he could be a Heisman candidate by the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree.
And we did have Boise State as the top, the G5 team to make it into the college football playoff here at Phantom Sports. So this is going to be a solid game based off of what we have predicted, based off of what we've seen so far heading into this week. And I guess that leaves us to our preview, our predictions, the betting prediction. Um, and we'll start there. We'll start with the betting prediction. Oregon is an 18.5 favorite over Boise State heading into this game, according to BetMGM Sportsbook. The Ducks are minus 1100 on the money line. The Broncos are plus 675. And the over-under for this game is set at 61.5. Where do you see this game going?
I'll go. I see it as it's gonna come down to a very close game. I think from what I was seeing from the point of view is GT showed up last week and what he did was phenomenal. But for me, it's the kind of the quarterback battle and the defensive battle. You know, Boise State ranked 59th in team defense last year. Not great. This year, you know, like in one game they allowed 45 points. Kind of a concern against Georgia Southern, which isn't looked at as like a big time school and big time program. Oregon, obviously Idaho, that's their Super Bowl is, you know, they get to play a high team like Oregon. If Boise State can keep this close and they still lose, like you said, this can go their way still as going into the playoffs. But if their defense is just going to let Dylan Gabriel go down the field as many times as they want, this offense, I highly doubt, is going to be able to throw punches back and keep going back and turn this into an offensive shootout. So it's really going to be up to GT having a great game this year. This week. It's also going to be up to Madsen. You know, I was shocked that Malachi Nelson didn't win the starting job because that's who I thought was going to win the starting job. But Madsen came out and won it. I think if Madsen can have a almost spot-on game, Boise State has a chance. If not, I think Oregon will run away with this easily.
Yeah, I don't think we should overreact with Oregon just yet after week one. I think they're going to figure things out. And like we said all offseason, they're going to be the team that we said they'll be. But that being said, if they don't actually like win that dominantly, it might be time for me to like change my outlook on the team overall. But the question, like you said, is if Oregon can stop Austin Jeanty, and luckily the big strength for them is against the run. They have a great defensive line. They should be able to limit it on the ground. And you know that Lanning is going to try to take away their one weapon. Well, he's not their only weapon, but the team definitely runs right through him. And despite the poor play on the offensive line, Gabriel was still really efficient. So I don't think we're going to see Oregon play poorly in back-to-back games. And I don't think Boise State's defense is going to be good enough to stop Oregon at receiver. I've been seeing the spread at some sites at like 21. I think that's super high. But I think they might be able to cover 18.5, but I don't know. It's still really steep for me. I think the Broncos will be able to hold the time of possession enough to cover that spread. But I have Oregon like winning this one 100%.
I just want to say this real quick. I can see why people are like kind of overreacting with Oregon being like, oh, well, they barely beat Idaho. But this is a whole new team of Oregon. You know, they lost so many people to the draft. I'm thinking people are expecting them to just blow out teams still and just have a free ride into the college playoff. This team they're in the Big Ten. Like, nothing's going to be easy for them anymore. Having a new quarterback, having some offensive line, new players, not having Troy Franklin there. You know, I think this is a whole new Oregon Ducks team that we're seeing. So I think just because they won by 10 points in week one is, a little bit of an overreaction. I think they should have stayed in the top five in the rankings. Personally, that's just me. I think moving them down to seventh was a big overreaction.
I agree. I think like Dakota said, the protection wasn't as great as it looked like last year. They have both tackles returning as starters, but they lost like a couple of people in the interior. Most importantly, like Jackson Powers Johnson, who they lost to the draft. But I think in another week, another week of practice, they'll have some time to mesh, and I think they're gonna actually come out and play a really, really good game against Oregon or against Boise State.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget how much Oregon lost this last year, especially in leadership. I mean, you're talking their entire backfield, Bo Nix and Bucky Irving.
Yep.
You're talking you lost your center, who is the leader of your offensive line, no matter how you look at it. You lost Troy Franklin. You lost some defensive leaders in Kyrie Jackson and Brandon Dorless. You also lost Evan Williams. You lost Jamal Hill. So this is, Dan Lanning's got to find the new leaders. I mean, this was Dylan Gabriel's first game as a Duck. He didn't do horrible.
Yeah, no, he played, in all counts, I think he played exceptional. 380 for 2 touchdowns. I mean, I think a lot of quarterbacks will take that any day of the week.
41 for 47, I think, completion too.
I will say I think Oregon could do a better job of opening up the playbook and allowing him to run a little bit more, because that's what Dylan Gabriel was able to do at Oklahoma. That's why he was so good there. He was able to run. He was able to get out of the pocket. He is a shorter quarterback, so he's kind of like your Russell Wilsons, your Kyler Murrays, your Tua's. Yeah, exactly. So he's got to be able to get out of the pocket a little bit. He's not a pocket passer, but I will say, I do think Oregon is going to take this one by a pretty big margin. I don't think it's going to be the favored line there. I don't think Oregon's going to win by more than 18. And I don't think they're going to win by as less as 12 or as less as 10. I think it's going to be a 17-point victory for Oregon, 45-32.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
I think it's going to be a bit of a lower scoring game if G&T gets going on the ground. I know Boise State's going to want to just hold the ball as much as they can. But I do have Oregon winning by like a similar margin, about 14 to 17 points in that range.
Sorry, that math didn't add up there. 45-28 is what I meant to say.
For me, I think I'm kind of in the same ballpark as you guys, kind of around like the 17-point range. I think Oregon gets it going later on in the game, but this can't be a game just on G&T because Oregon, I'm pretty sure have a game plan in place to make sure, okay, let's not let G&T go 6 touchdowns. So that's kind of why I went back to the quarterback. I think this is going to turn into a quarterback game. Who's going to be the better quarterback? So I'm going with Oregon. I'm going to go with the 17-point, just like you, Dakota. I wanted to lean towards Boise State, but I just think Oregon's one of these top 4 teams in the country. So for me, I'm going Oregon 17 points.
Yeah, we all seem to be in agreement, and we still think Oregon's one of the top teams in the country, and we're not ready to give up on them just yet. So
we were going to have Shane on today. We all know where he would have leaned. That was BSU. So shout out to him. Sounds like he has some problems with his dog right now, which is why he couldn't join us. But we'll give him his credit on that. BSU is a pretty solid team heading into this one. They look solid. We do have them going into the college football playoff this year. So that'll do it for us here in week 2. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.